Hi everyone, so today I thought I'd share with you a recipe that I've just learned about, not just, but about a month ago heard about, rhubarb barbecue sauce. And I had never thought of making barbecue sauce from rhubarb. And I looked online and I found a whole bunch of different recipes. And so I thought I'd try it. So my son-in-law and I worked together and created kind of our own because we couldn't find a recipe that we liked all of the ingredients on in any of them, but they were all pretty similar as far as the amount of rhubarb and things like that in them. So we decided to just kind of create our own. So I'm going to share that with you today, and I will link in my description a link to my website where the recipe will be located for a printed version of the recipe. One side note, this is not a tested ball recipe. This is just my recipe, and it's based on a whole bunch of different recipes plus a little bit of our own ingenuity, I guess you could say. And so use at your own risk. If you're going to can it like I'm going to do, just know that it's not been a tested recipe with ball. So without further ado, I have a ton of rhubarb. And I made one batch the first time because we didn't know if we would like it. And it made 3 jars. And so I'm going to make, and it actually didn't make 3 full pint jars. It just made 2 and like 3/4. So I'm going to make some, I'm going to double the batch because we don't use a ton of barbecue sauce, but we do use some. So I'm going to double the batch. So it takes, to begin with, 16 cups of rhubarb. So I'm going to get that cut up and get that in a pot. And this rhubarb has all been washed. Make sure you wash your rhubarb ahead of time. And I'm going to get that cut up and then we'll move on with the recipe. So I have 16 cups of rhubarb. I know it looks like a lot. It does fill my pan up. I don't know, maybe I'll get a bigger pan. We'll see. But it's going to cook way down. I already know that, so I haven't decided if I'll just leave it like this or not. But so the rhubarb's done, and then I need 2 whole onions chopped. And they don't have to be really finely minced because, well, you could make it chunky. But the rhubarb is going to cook way down, and I'm also going to blend it. So I'm going to chop it so that it'll cook, but I'm not going to worry about cutting it really small. And any kind of onion will work. I just always buy yellow onions. I don't know. That's what I also plant in my garden, is yellow onions. I guess it's the most universal, probably. Or at least at our house it is. I also make a rhubarb chutney, and I think I have a video of that. If I do, I will link to it, but if not, maybe this summer, although I don't really need more chutney. I'm the only one that eats it, and I love it, but I only need a few jars. So I may not need to make it this year. You could use, some of the recipes that I saw used powdered onion, like granulated onion and granulated garlic. I am going to use granulated garlic because I don't have any garlic currently. But I feel like as much as you can use the whole ingredient, it just tastes better, I personally think. But if you don't have onions, or you just don't want to chop onions, you can use granulated. I've got a hair in my face. Okay, so onions and rhubarb. Okay, so now we have the rest of the ingredients, and these are all smaller quantities and or more liquidy type items. So hopefully again, hopefully it'll fit in here. The first thing I'm going to put it in, so because I'm doubling this, the recipe will just have 1 can of this, but I'm doubling my recipe. So 2 cans of tomato sauce. This was something that was, sorry, I lost my train of thought. This was something that was in some recipes and not in others. And I kind of liked the addition. We started off without tomato sauce when we were doing our recipe, and both me and my son-in-law decided that it needed the tomato sauce in it. And I'm going to get an apron really quick. Because knowing me, I will slop it down the front of my shirt. Okay. And the ones that did include tomato sauce included weird amounts. I hate it when recipes call for a partial can of something because I know I'm not going to use the rest of the can. So we just went with 1 whole regular size can of tomato sauce. Okay, I'm going to get a spoon. I don't know, I still hold out hope. Okay, we're going to add, actually I'll do that last. We're going to put in some vinegar. So 1/4 cup and 1/2 cup of each. We're doing white vinegar and apple cider vinegar. Okay, and then, because I don't want to get out of the cup, we're going to do brown sugar. And this is something you can adjust. So I put in less brown sugar than any of the other recipes called for, but that's because I am going to put some molasses in it. And my husband doesn't really like it sweet. He doesn't really like barbecue sauce, but I don't really like it super ultra sweet either. So it's actually going to look like a lot, but this is cut back. So we're going to do 2 cups of that, or 2 cups per recipe. And it doesn't matter if it's like super compacted, but we have some more here. Starting to think my pan choice was maybe not big enough. Okay, I'm gonna get a bigger pan and then we'll continue. Okay, and we are back with the bigger pan. That's a little bit better. Okay, now we're gonna do the spices. Some salt, 2 teaspoons of salt, and then garlic. I have granulated garlic. You can use any kind of, I would not use garlic salt. I would use just garlic, granulated or powdered. But I'm going to do like 6 teaspoons or a couple tablespoons of that because I don't have regular garlic in there. And then cinnamon. And now here's where you can do what you kind of want. These were some of the things on different recipes, and these are spices that I like. And so I decided to include them. So we're going to go 2 teaspoons of each. So I'm doing cinnamon, ginger, and it's kind of heaping teaspoons, I don't know, just whatever. And then some allspice. And then the last thing is cayenne pepper. You can add this or not. I like mine a little bit spicy. Definitely not a whole teaspoon for 1 batch, but I might add a whole or most of a teaspoon because of the size of batch. And because I do like a little bit of spice. Okay, and then the last ingredient, and this is the one that we found was what was missing. So none of the recipes we looked at called for molasses. It called for brown sugar, and I guess they were thinking there was enough brown sugar. But when we kept tasting it, there was just always something missing. And so my son-in-law was like, well, what about molasses? And so we tried it, and that was what it needed. It was perfect after that. So this we didn't measure very well. So I have written down like maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. So I'm going to go 1/2 a cup because I'm doubling this. And this molasses that I have is actually a blackstrap molasses. It's a lot more molassesy and a little less sweet. But for something like this, I think it's perfect because you're not looking for extra sweet. You're just looking for depth of flavor. Okay, so I'm going to mix this up and then we'll go over to the stove and we'll get it started cooking. Okay, so here is our mixture on the stove, and we're going to heat it up and we're going to cook it for about 15 minutes or so. And what we're looking for is for the rhubarb specifically to be starting to break down. That smells so good. Anyway, to be starting to break down and to the point where we can blend it and I like a smooth sauce. So to the point where we can blend it and get a smooth sauce. You need to stir it periodically. Like, don't just leave it, and you don't have to stand here and constantly stir it, but you need to just come and scrape the bottom, make sure it's not sticking, because there is a fair amount of sugar in it. And you don't want that to actually burn, because that would not taste very good. So we're going to let this cook and cook down. We'll let it boil, or simmer, I should say, not boil, but simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next step of blending it. Okay, so this has been simmering for probably 15 minutes or so. The rhubarb has really started to break down. The onions are getting soft. And so now I'm ready to process this in a blender, or if you don't have a blender, a food processor will probably work as well. Just be aware that this is extremely hot, and so you're going to want to, I don't know, I kind of let it sit for a few minutes. Okay, so I have this in my blender, and one thing I really make sure to do, no, that's not sitting there, is to not, like wear a glove or something, because this will get really hot. The steam will build up in there, and so you want to be very careful that you don't burn yourself. And I just run it until I don't see any chunks floating around on the inside. And now we're going to transfer this back to my smaller pan that I started with. Okay, so that took me 3 blenderfuls to blend that up. It's funny how canning recipes work, because the first time we made it, we did the same 8 cups and everything, and we got 2.5, maybe 2 3/4 pint jars of sauce. And now this looks like it's going to be like way more pint jars. I don't know. So I doubled it thinking, well, I'll get 5 or 6. I think I'm going to have more than 5 or 6. But so the next step is to turn on the oven, or put it back on the stove, and then I like to just heat it back up, just so that when I put it in my jars, it's really hot. Then when I put it in my water bath or my water canner, it's hot. And so it just cuts down on the processing time when you're going hot to hot to hot. So we're going to let this warm back up, and then we'll be back. Okay, so it never takes like super long to heat back up, because it's still very hot sauce. So this was like maybe 2 minutes before it started boiling. And I don't want it to be like boiling really hard. But you can see how that's really thickened up nicely. It was really thin until I blended it, and then obviously the rhubarb breaking down makes it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to put this in my jars, and then we'll put it in the canner. Okay, so obviously way more than 5 jars, but we're ready to can now. Okay, so that's already boiling, so we're gonna just put the, oh, no. Maybe we'll put the lid on it, give it a couple minutes, make sure it's boiling, and then cook it for 20 minutes. All right, so we're done cooking, and I like to wait just like a minute or two to let it kind of stop boiling and a little bit. Anyway, and then I'm gonna lift it up, but I'm not gonna take the jars out of the canner yet. I'm gonna let them kind of cool down another like 10 minutes as well, so that it's not such a sharp shock going from the canner to the counter. Okay, so it's been a few minutes, probably not 10, but we're gonna pull these out.